Hi, everybody. It's Stephanie Shea, Chief Astrologer for janspiller.com. I'm so excited to be offering this Facebook Live today. I've been missing connecting with people. As you may know, we've been in a retrograde season this fall of both Mercury and Mars retrograde simultaneously. We're starting to come out of that. As of today, Mars is going to station retrograde this evening, I think around 7:30 on the East Coast, around 4:30 here on the West Coast. We had Mercury stationing direct back on November 3rd, good old election day. So we're going to start feeling some more forward momentum as we close out the year. And I took some time to work on some of my projects and use the retrogrades for some inward focused activities, but it feels appropriate to do something public like today so I can connect with people and let you know about the two eclipses that are coming up. And 2020 has been very unique in the way that we have had 6 total eclipses. So a lot of years we only get maybe 4, maybe 5. 6 is an unusually high number. And if you think back to the Christmas eclipse of 2019, that sort of went with the eclipses of 2020. It was part of a pair with the second one happening in January. So you could think of 7 eclipses affecting one year. And knowing that eclipses represent things coming to light as well as endings and beginnings. If you see a lot of eclipses in one year, you know, even before you know how it's going to unfold, this is going to be an unusual year. And so it certainly hasn't been your typical year. And we have 2 more eclipses to go. The good thing about these eclipses, from my standpoint, is that they're not occurring during retrograde cycles. So we might be able to use them more forward moving, feel a bit more productive about it. I think it has been important to focus on the past, but you can do that for so long, and then it's actually time to move forward and do something. So here's what we have coming up. We have November 30th, 2020, a 8-degree Gemini lunar eclipse. And as I was mentioning, the eclipses often represent things coming to light. That's very true with a full moon lunar eclipse. It's not so much about the endings and beginnings. That's more the solar eclipse. So with the lunar eclipse, we're able to see things that we might not have been able to see before. It can really help inform our future direction and decisions. Even if it turns out we don't like what we see, it's better to know. And the thing with this lunar eclipse in the sign of Gemini is that Gemini is a sign ruling information. And I think we've all been feeling, especially this year, just kind of a bombardment of information, maybe more than we're used to. Maybe it's because it was an election year, maybe because of the pandemic. Anyway, there's just been a lot. And this lunar eclipse is going to continue with that. And we have to be really mindful about how we sort through this information. It is available to us, but the responsibility is really on ourselves to decide how we react. For one, maybe we don't need to react, and how we use it and how we determine what feels true for us. Because this eclipse is on the axis of Gemini and Sagittarius, so the sun being in Sagittarius, the moon being in Gemini, there is a lot about getting to the truth. If Gemini is about facts and information, Sagittarius is about the truth and what feels like your higher wisdom. There's a really spiritual component to not only the last 2 eclipses of 2020, but actually all the eclipses coming up in 2021, most of them will also be in Gemini and Sagittarius. So we're kind of on this journey. And I'm going to focus mostly on how we can use these eclipses in our personal lives. There's always the big picture information. I feel a bit informationed out as far as political information. It's out there, there's astrologers doing it, but I'm going to use this talk to bring people back to their selves and to see how you can use this productively for your own personal journey. So, with this Gemini lunar eclipse, it could highlight issues that have to do with your communications, with your siblings or neighbors, with learning or making connections. And there's definitely going to be a focus on making yourself understood. Even though we're out of the retrogrades, we're still dealing with a bit of shadow when it comes to the end of the Mercury retrograde cycle and the end of the Mars retrograde, to where I think there'll be this heightened lunar eclipse energy that could make people speak and say something out of a reaction before thinking about it. This is something we can give ourselves a heads up about. I was excited to give this talk, prepare people. It's okay to take a step back and have some time for yourself. It's always a good idea around the full moon, I think, anyway, so you can really get a handle on what your emotions are feeling like without external distraction. But when there's a lunar eclipse, that's especially important because that really magnifies the energy. So think about that. I think relationships will be a big focus of this lunar eclipse, especially with the people you might encounter on a daily basis, and how you can interact in a more productive way, how you can help other people feel that they've been heard. I think that's a big theme of this. And I think we're already feeling this one, but realizing that your ideals might be vastly different from people around you. You could just see it more clearly under this astrology and realize you might need to find your people, the people who you feel that you can be you and express yourself. You don't really want to isolate yourself from anyone who doesn't have the same opinion. But when it's a lunar eclipse, I think some nurturing is required. The moon is the sign of nurturing, it rules the sign of Cancer. So be good to yourself, find some self-soothing activities you can do. All that is going to put your mind in a relaxed state, which will help you to get clear about the facts that we might be bombarded with. And it's definitely a good time for anyone who is a student, because I should mention that lunar eclipses represent your efforts coming to fruition. So this is a positive manifestation of any full moon, but particularly a lunar eclipse, because that's something you've probably been working on for a while, for at least 6 months. So if you've been taking classes, you could feel like, whew, wow, I'm seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Or perhaps in your work life, if you've been doing a lot of networking, I know there's a lot of people out there looking for work. That's been a big theme of 2020. And networking is ruled by the sign of Gemini. So your networking efforts could pay off around this time. It's also a good time for researching if you were going to take a class, if you haven't signed up for a class. So I would recommend using this to your advantage for sure. There's a lot you can do with full moon eclipse energy. Just keep in mind, again, with this information bombardment piece, as we go through what we call eclipse season, which entails the time period leading up to, then we've got our 2 eclipses, this November 30th lunar eclipse, as well as our December 14th solar eclipse that I'm going to tell you about. That whole time period, I think it could feel that we have to sort through some confusion. We've got the planet Neptune somewhat involved in these eclipses. Neptune is the planet of illusion and disillusion. and it is squaring what's known as the lunar nodes, where they're positioned around this eclipse. I'm going to try not to get too techie with everybody, but just know that with this interaction of Pisces having kind of a tense angle to the lunar nodes around these eclipses, that could make it feel even more confusing, which is all the more reason to take things slowly and not jump to conclusions. And I think when we're looking at Sagittarius energy, which is also involved in a Gemini lunar eclipse, that we are looking at avoiding absolutes and making blanket statements and all or nothing. And this has kind of already been a theme of 2020. We've had our lunar nodes, North Node in Gemini, South Node in Sagittarius. That has been bringing out this theme actually globally. I know I said I wasn't going to talk big picture, but sometimes it helps to bring a context. So that is most of what the rundown is for this upcoming lunar eclipse, and it's just a few weeks away. If you happen to be born around this date, Sagittarius people born between November 28th and say December 2nd, this is going to maybe feel more powerful for you. And it's known if a lunar eclipse falls right around your birthday, it can indicate a year ahead that's in the spotlight. Um, so it's nothing to fear. You may actually just gain some recognition or credit for your work, something you've been working at finally feels like it comes together. So it's generally seen as a positive thing. And I think Gemini people who will kind of have this lunar eclipse opposing, well, really the eclipse is on their sun, but the Sagittarius sun is opposing them. That would be Gemini people May 27th to 31st. And for those folks, I think there could be a little tension because it's an opposition, and I think it will really mirror the themes of self and other relationships, seeing yourself in others, and maybe some of the things that agitate you show up in the form of someone else. That's kind of a classic thing that can happen. So knowing that is coming up, you can sort of give yourself a heads up on that, and before you start projecting that someone else is doing something, you can take the time at this lunar eclipse to reflect, well, what is it that's been bothering you about this, maybe someone else's behavior, and where does that come from, and where might that relate to how you are? So those are some rich topics to explore as we move into that. And I'm going to move on next. It's so funny. This is, Mars retrograde. I have my notes for the next eclipse, which I probably don't even need, but I like to have them. And they have suddenly vanished. So I'm going to just keep going. I thought I'd share that because I am an Aries, and so Mars is stationing direct today in my sun sign of Aries, and I was just feeling a bit discombobulated. So anyhow, I thought it'd be good to share. And I'm just scanning at these comments, and I'm very happy to see the people on here. Thank you so much. It's really nice to see people joining in and engaging in this. So let's move on to, we've got this solar eclipse occurring on December 14th this year. And it's a Sagittarius solar eclipse, 23 degrees Sagittarius. This one's a big deal because the new moon solar eclipses serve as high-powered intention-setting times. And so if you follow Jan Spiller's work, you know about the book New Moon Astrology. In that book, Jan talks about setting your intentions at pretty much every new moon. It's a powerful time to manifest what you want. But a few times a year, we get the opportunity to set intentions at a solar eclipse. We usually get about 2 a year, maybe one extra depending, but we're not going to have another solar eclipse until June of 2021. So you can think about things that you want to unfold over the next 6 months between now and then, and think bigger picture. The other reason to think bigger picture with your intentions at this solar eclipse new moon is that it's in the sign of Sagittarius, which really likes to think big. So what got me excited when I saw this eclipse coming, I was studying these eclipses this time last year. I actually gave a talk on them here in Portland. And I saw this one as one of the most powerful eclipses of the year because it was not involved in a retrograde cycle. There was very few months this year that we weren't experiencing either Mars retrograde, Venus retrograde, or Mercury retrograde. And so I do think that can detract a bit from intention setting. It's still a great idea to do it because we have to put that energy out there, but I feel that everything just takes so much longer. And really, the new moons where you're setting intentions during a retrograde cycle, it's more productive to think about what you want to release from your life. But this upcoming eclipse on December 14th is all about new beginnings. And to me, the timing couldn't be better. It's so nice that we're heading into a brand new year. I would recommend using this new moon as your New Year's resolutions intention setting. It's a more astrologically powerful day than January 1st. So you can use it for that. And the themes of it have to do a lot with the themes of Sagittarius, which do involve freedom as one of the big ones. And that's such a good concept to look at right now as far as what makes us feel free. And I remember back when I was preparing this lecture, I thought, okay, what are some other traditional Sagittarius themes? Okay, there's travel, there's adventure. And then we arrived at this point in the year and international travel, that's a big Sagittarius theme, not so possible right now. I guess we can be a bit adventurous, but I really shifted how I thought about the Sagittarius themes for this eclipse based on our current reality. So what I came up with is, because Sagittarius is such a spiritual sign, this is a special eclipse to see what can help us feel free within our spirit, within our minds. We can free ourselves from the need to be everywhere and do everything and to have everything. This is more of a freedom of what makes us happy. We still get to be in charge of how we expend our energy for the most part. Sagittarius being a fire sign, I was really seeing that as a way that we could take some actions on our own behalf, and just even incorporating simple practices into our daily life that can help us to feel free right now, despite any type of limiting circumstances. And the other thing that is a Sagittarius theme is higher education, the pursuit of knowledge that is totally available to us. And again, it could be information overload at times, but honing in on the subjects that really light us up and the things that are going to propel us forward, that are going to motivate us to do our work in the world. This is a great new moon solar eclipse to set intentions related to that. And so these are things that we can consider now as we move forward into eclipse season. It's definitely a time to employ sensitivity when you're engaging with others. I think the shadow side of Sagittarius can be that there's a sense of righteousness or feeling like you don't want to admit if you're wrong, if you don't know everything, the pressure to know all the answers. We're really being encouraged under this astrology to let go of the need to do that. And this is going to require a lot of patience, I think, with ourselves and with others, when we hear people saying things that we just do not feel is true. Not to make that person feel less than in a way, and try to orient towards how we can just make ourselves more knowledgeable and communicate in a more compassionate way, and try to spread that kind of energy. So I'm really excited about that. I'm looking at the comments over here, and I'll kind of give some readings of those, because I really like what people are interjecting about this time period. I think we've all been feeling it, and so it's not really a coincidence that that's the theme of these eclipses. And if you are getting ready to embark on a new learning journey, that may come up for you as part of your solar eclipse new moon intentions, and you start to think, well, maybe I shouldn't do that, I don't know enough, I'm not qualified, like the fear of not knowing. Well, that is a big theme that you can overcome with this astrology, like realizing that everybody started somewhere from square one. So, and I see there's a couple of Sagittarius people that I know on this Facebook Live, and I just want to give you extra support for these eclipses. There's a person named Mila, or I hope I'm saying your name right, the double Sag. And I have another friend, Shannon, who's on here, who's very Sagittarian. And this is actually your time to shine. It can be very empowering when there's eclipses in your sign, especially when they fall on your birthday. So let's talk about Sagittarians who are born anywhere around December 14th, within a few days of that window. This is like your astrological new year plus. You're going to have the opportunity to set intentions for the year ahead, and you are in store most likely for some bigger endings and beginnings than if the eclipse was falling later in December or late November. You feel it much stronger when it's right near your birthday. But I would say with this, all Sagittarius people are being primed for some new beginnings with this upcoming eclipse. And that's nothing to fear. I think a lot of people have been ready for something different. The good thing about Sagittarians is that they embrace adventures. They seem to be very good at jumping in and trying something. And I think just the big thing to let go is to not expect that you know everything right away. And I'm seeing that Mila says her birthday is on the 14th. I'm so glad you attended today. That's very important. I think you're ready for something new, and you have the astrological support for it. And anyone who's either Gemini or Sagittarius is undergoing probably more shifts than some of the other signs around this time. So there's a lot to look forward to. I've actually been looking forward to these eclipses most of the year, because it feels like there will be some productive action that we can take as a result. And so knowing that this is how we get to close out the year, kind of making a fresh start feeling for the new year, that to me is really what's been needed. And I'm seeing, major reboot. Yes, definitely. Let me check out some of these other awesome comments. Thank you so much for being here, everybody. Let's see. No more politics. Yeah, right? Like this, I just felt like, let's look at what we can do for ourselves. And coming back to ourselves, thanks, Steph. Free our minds. Thanks, Johnny. Progress and not perfection. That is a good point. Yeah, that from John over there. Yeah, like when we're talking about being Sagittarius and releasing the need to know all the answers, or to feel that you are that you do know all the answers, to celebrate our small progress along the way and release the need for perfection, because we all know that's not realistic anyway. And that kind of goes right along with what Ellen was saying, do the best you can. Um, so this is great. And we've got a double Gemini on the line. And then, of course, KJ, who is our contributing astrologer slash social media slash technical support, who make sure I don't crash the computer while I'm doing Facebook Live. She is Gemini Sun with Sagittarius rising. So yes, KJ, this is big for you. Now, I got a question from Lisa. What if I'm June 13th? How does it affect opposite sign? And that's a really good point. I think when the solar eclipse opposes your sun, it could be that the changes are instigated more from another person or external circumstance, where a lot of times when the solar eclipse is right on your natal sun, you feel more of the drive to instigate the change. So either way, I think you're slated for some new beginnings, but in your case, Lisa, it might have to do with someone else either inspiring you with an idea. Sometimes it can come with someone being a real pain, and then you want to take an action that frees you from that. But either way, you can get some change out of that. And I see Sharon, our Gemini Sun with Sag Moon astrologer friend, on here. It's so cool to see all the people representing. And Lisa says, definitely feeling that, someone being a pain. So yeah, that's just know now that you have the heads up on these eclipses, thank goodness Mars retrograde is over, because I think, I did that talk on Mars retrograde. It's Mars in Aries. There's a lot of shadow Aries traits in the form of anger, frustration. That is going to start mellowing out a bit, but it's not completely gone during these eclipses. It's just a little better. So remembering that piece, we're going to have to all keep our cool. And that's why I like to give these talks well in advance of the events. Then you have it on your calendar. And it's always good to note the lunar cycles, full moon, new moon, do some sort of special ritual. I love the new moon intentions, but then at the full moon, it's kind of nice to do something extra nurturing and give myself time to see what is up. Because the new moon is more churning out the ideas of what's going to happen, what I would like to happen next. But then we have to have that checkpoint along the way. So I'm excited about that. And I see Jane. Oh, there's Doug. Hey, Doug. Sag rocks. That's right. And then Jane says, Gemini Sun and Ascendant, buckle in. Yeah, safe to say. I mean, depending on the rest of your chart too, I don't ever, it's hard to know everything that's going to go down. Lisa says, repeat the dates of the eclipses. Absolutely. We've got November 30th is our 8-degree Gemini lunar eclipse, and December 14th is our 23 degrees Sagittarius solar eclipse. So those are the dates to remember. And as we're moving towards the end of the year, we'll be clear of Mercury retrograde. I'm pretty sure by that lunar eclipse at least, but we'll still be in the Mars retrograde all the way until January 6th. Just the shadow though. So it's as it moves through the shadow, it weakens. But I do think it's worth mentioning. And then, I have done a whole separate talk on the Saturn and Jupiter moving into Aquarius next month. So you can check that out if you missed that one. That's on the Jan Spiller YouTube channel because oh, hey, Jeeves. June 20th, Gemini. Yeah, so for that, I wanted, yeah, just to refer people to check that video out because that plays into some of this eclipse season. Like a week after we have that December 14th solar eclipse, we end up with a conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter in 0 Aquarius on December 21st on the winter solstice. So things are really getting activated. If you didn't notice. And I wanted to mention another event coming up if you're interested in sort of getting the lay of the land for the bigger picture astrology. I have done a lot of work preparing for 2021. That's a lot of the Jan Spiller content I do. There's sun sign reports for each sign. And then I also, every year for the past few years, have been doing a talk on the astrology for the upcoming year. And I collaborate with Elizabeth Russell, who's on here today, who creates the Dream Fruit Almanac, which is like a lunar planner, creative journal plus kind of thing. And we are doing that on January 9th. It's a Saturday afternoon from 1 to 4 p.m. In afternoon. And it is on Zoom this year, of course. So I would love to just keep you in the loop on that. We have a save the date, excuse me, for this event that we can pop in the links so you can keep it on your radar. And I'll be giving the rundown of all the astrology that is, you know, of note for the year 2021. There's still a lot of activity. We got through some stuff that we won't have to revisit again in our lifetimes, but now we're going to enter some new things. And so I would love to see you all there and be able to talk about that. So I wanted to give that a mention. And I wanted to see, yeah, I love that people have been asking questions. Elizabeth put up the link to our it's called Create Your New Year. So that event link is in the comments now from Elizabeth Russell. And yeah, I'm curious if there's any other type of questions people had going into these eclipses. It looks like most people are going to be personally affected. So many Geminis and Sag here. Ellen has her MC, which is the top of the chart, the midheaven in Sagittarius. So, you know, that's where it's really good to know your chart, because then you can kind of also get a heads up on what area of life might be up for review, for revealed information, for inspiration to start something new or to end something. It's all very practical tools. So I'm so glad we got the chance to do this. And yeah, eclipse season is always good, but I think especially this year, it's always good to have the heads up, because we've already been on such a ride this year. And I wanted people not to fear the eclipses, but to be aware that it's a time still to keep up the self-care, just because it's starting something new and it might feel more exciting, not to push yourself too hard. We're processing a lot. When there's a lunar eclipse, there's a lot of emotional information. And I think when it's in the sign of Gemini, that can manifest in a very busy mind, where your thoughts just, it's all about the things you've been feeling that suddenly bubble up like a pot boiling over. And that's okay to do, because we can't keep it bottled up. But I think it's good to be aware of that, so you can create a little bit of space for that to happen and just let it bubble, some of it vaporize as steam, you know. So I think, okay, Elizabeth has a better link for us. That's perfect for our New Year's event. And I think that is the basics of what I wanted to share with everybody. I'm keeping it a bit short and sweet because we, as I said, we've all been receiving so much information. But I'm hoping you can use this to help you. And there are reports also on the eclipses and all the astrological phenomenon. If you do become a member of janspiller.com, you can get some of this in a written form of articles. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. We're always doing what we can to keep Jan's legacy going. She's such an inspiration to me and to the world. And so, yeah, I would love to share more of that work with everybody. And thank you, Jane. I'm just so excited that we could get together. I was a bit worried about the tech issues today because of Mars retrograde and me being in Aries, but it all seemed to go pretty well. So thank you for being here, and this video will be available later if you want to rewatch. Have a wonderful day, everybody.